Winning Blueprint presents.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. What a serious news day in the National Football League. I tell you what, as we draw nearer and nearer to free agency, things are starting to heat up. I love it. This is the best time of the offseason. A lot of people get excited about the draft. I get excited about free agency because teams really start making moves, and it's really, for all intents and purposes, the beginning of the offseason. Look, once free agency kicks off and teams start making moves, they start cutting players, they start signing players, pieces start to fall into place, and then you can start to look at the draft. See, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to look at the draft from this far out unless you're just analyzing players. Because if you're talking about team needs, those needs could change after free agency. Your team could go out and address a glaring need at the corner position with two corners in free agency. You don't need a corner in the draft anymore. If they're relatively young corners, you don't need to go in the draft. And so free agency is a great time for me because you start to see how the team is going to develop, how it's going to shape up, and really start to look for the upcoming season. And now rosters are changing. Guys are being released. Guys are having to take pay cuts. Guys are having to restructure deals. They're signing guys, and people are starting to talk about, hey, I think I like this guy. Hey, I want to sign this guy. Teams are really starting to get into the flow of things, and it is a beautiful thing to watch because there's a lot of pandemonium, and I'm just sitting back watching it all transpire and loving every second of it. So let's get to the show today because there's a lot to get to. A lot of things happened today, and the day is still young. Many more things probably will occur on this Friday before the day is done, but I want to address everything that has happened yesterday and today. So let's get started with the news that Brian Hartline signed a 5-year, $31 million deal yesterday with the Dolphins. He is back in the fold in Miami. This is a huge signing for the Dolphins. They needed to have this done before free agency kicked off because Hartline, I think, is a integral cog in the machine that they're trying to build offensively around Ryan Tannehill. Look, you have a number 3 receiver, a slot guy in Devon Best, one of the best in the NFL. You look at the number 2 position. That's been solidified with Hartline being back. Now you need your number 1. That's why the Dolphins are going to be in heavy pursuit of Mike Wallace, and I think that's exactly where Mike Wallace will end up. In the end, I think that's where he'll be, but this is about Brian Hartline. He got his deal, $12.5 million up front. This is a big deal for a guy that has been up and down with his production, but in 2012, you saw what a healthy Brian Hartline can bring to the table. When at times he was the only option, he was still getting it done. Teams knew, hey, we have to stop Brian Hartline. If nothing else, let's stop this guy and make someone else beat us. And he still was going out and making plays. So he has been rewarded for his play in Miami, and I'm happy to see the Dolphins starting to spend some of that money and trying to help this team become a better team in the AFC East because this division isn't that good. The Patriots are a good football team, but they're not that juggernaut team that they used to be. They can be had, and if some teams in that division start to make wise decisions in the offseason and start to put together a good nucleus of players, they can make a run at the Patriots. And I think the Dolphins are that team next in line to take over the throne in the AFC East if they make the right moves here in the next couple of seasons. Big move for the Dolphins to get Brian Hartline back onto their roster for this year and moving forward. So let's talk about the Giants for a second because the Giants have a lot of things going on. And there's a lot of things going on in New York, period. So let's start with the Giants and then we'll move our way to the Jets. The Giants, they want Martellus Bennett back. And they make no bones about it. They want him back. And I think that's a wise move for the Giants. He was really productive for them. At times, he would disappear, but when he was on in the 2012 season for the Giants, and I think he's a guy that is only going to get better. I thought that he needed a fresh start after he left Dallas. I thought he underachieved greatly in Dallas, and I think that's an understatement. Everyone knows he did not play to his full potential in Dallas. I thought he needed a breath of fresh air. He got that in New York, and I thought he played really well. And I think he can play even better. And if he stays in New York, has another year under his belt in that system, Eli Manning is comfortable with him, I think he'll get even more targets. I think he'll catch even more balls. I think he'll be even more explosive in that Giants offense. Also in New York, yesterday they asked Corey Webster. No. They didn't ask. They made Corey Webster take a pay cut. They told Corey Webster, look, man, you got one or two options. A, you can take this pay cut. We'll slash you by $3 million. Or B, we can release you. Which one do you want? Corey said, hey, look, man, I just want to stay in New York. So he took the pay cut. He'll remain a Giant, but that salary has been significantly slashed down. But look, that's what you have to do when your cap situation is in dire straits like the New York Giants. And so they're making moves. And because their cap situation is in dire straits, guys like Kenny Phillips won't be back. The Giants made an offer to Kenny Phillips, and Kenny Phillips said, really? That's what you think of me? You really expect me to put my name on the dotted line next to that figure? Now I'm going to try my luck on the free agent market. And so Kenny Phillips is going to test the waters, and I think someone's going to pay Kenny Phillips, and he won't be back in New York. But the even more interesting storyline out of New York right now is Victor Cruz. And look, at the end of the day, I feel like Victor Cruz will be back in New York. He's not going anywhere. The Giants won't allow him to go anywhere. But I tell you what, this thing is getting pretty close to the free agency deadline, and you don't want this thing to hit the free agency deadline, because if I'm hearing these sources correctly, they're saying that, look, suitors are getting in line to get their hands on Victor Cruz. And look, we know what Victor Cruz has done the last 2 seasons. Last year was a down year for him, and he still put up some gaudy numbers. So look, it would be in the Giants' best interest to get this deal done here in the next 2 to 3 days. Because if 4 days comes around and this deal isn't done, they could be in some trouble. Because normally, and look, Victor Cruz is a restricted free agent. And normally, when a guy is restricted and a tender is put on his head, you know, you got to give up a first-round pick. Most teams ignore those guys. They don't even think about trying to sign a guy that is attached with a tender because they don't want to give up a pick. Not only are you going to have to shell out some money to pay this guy, you're also going to have to fork over a pick. Who wants to do that? So normally, restricted free agents are ignored. But not in this instance. Teams are ignoring that first-round pick because they feel like they're getting a first-round talent in Victor Cruz. If they surrender a first-round pick, they feel like they're getting first-round talent out of Victor Cruz. And so the Giants better be careful here. They better tread lightly. They need to re-sign Victor Cruz. And I feel like it'll get done. I honestly don't think that Victor Cruz is going anywhere. But tell you what, it's starting to get closer and closer to that 24th hour. And in that 25th hour, Victor Cruz might be gone. Let's head over to Jersey now. We just hit New York, and we chatted a little bit about the Giants. Let's talk about the Jets now. The Jets, their cap situation is the worst by far in the National Football League. Mike Tannenbaum left a mess in New York, and John Idzik has a duty on his hands. He has a serious task because this cap situation is an abject disaster in New York. Speaking of the Jets here. And so they have to ask Santonio Holmes to take a pay cut. Now, is he willing to take that pay cut? Haven't heard anything yet. But the man is scheduled to make $11 million. Are you serious? That's insane. He's got to take a pay cut. If he won't take a cut, I say you got to release him. There's no way you can pay that man coming off of a knee injury. Look, even if he was 100% healthy, he's not worth $11 million in one season. No way. So the Jets have a decision to make. Santonio Holmes has a decision to make. And if he doesn't make the correct decision, if you're the Jets, you're going to be backed into a corner, and I feel like you got to come out swinging. You got to cut him loose. So the Jets have a lot of issues going on. they may lose their guard, Brandon Moore, because they don't have any money. They can't even re-sign guys that I don't think it would take that much to get back. But you don't have any money. When you have $11 million tied up and invested into one player who hasn't even been that productive for you since coming over in a trade, I tell you what, you lose guys that should be back in the fold. And Brandon Moore, their guard, should be back on their roster. But I tell you what, they're starving teams, hungry teams for offensive line play, like the Bears, who will not be hesitant to spend money to elevate the play of their offensive line. Look, we know all the struggles in Chicago, and it starts with that offensive line. And so they're going to be one of the most pivotal players in the offensive line market. I expect the Bears to make a huge splash immediately on the first day of free agency on that offensive line. And it might be more than one transaction. I can see them getting a tackle. I can see them getting a guard because Lance Lewis, their guard, is up for free agency. And I don't see him coming back. And so they're going to need to replace him, and they're going to need to replace Jamarcus Webb at left tackle. I see the Bears being a huge player in free agency along that offensive line. Also in Chicago, while we're on the subject of Chicago, you see how rapid this is? A lot of news today. You go from one team to the next, you transition, and you're talking about the next team just like that. Speaking of the Bears, they want to re-sign Jason Campbell. And I think I was hard on Jason Campbell because I thought that he really underachieved in the 2012 season. They needed him to step up. He did not do so. But again, behind that porous offensive line, what do you expect Jason Campbell to do? Jason Campbell is an average athlete. He doesn't like to run. And if you don't give him time, he won't push the ball down the field. He doesn't like to push the ball down the field anyway. He much prefer to check it down. And so if you don't give him the opportunity to scan the field and find receivers 15, 20, 30 yards down the field, he won't. He'll just dump it off 5 yards down the field on check down out in the flats, and you'll have to punt. And he was sacked and harassed when he was playing, and so I need to cut him some slack. He's a very good, solid backup quarterback in this league, and I think the Bears are doing the right thing by trying to retain the services of Jason Campbell. Busy day in the National Football League. So as we go from there, let's talk about guys being released today. A couple of guys, not a couple, a lot of guys were released today. Notable free agents. And look, this corner market, this secondary market is starting to balloon. Every day, more names are being added to the list of guys that you can sign on your football team in free agency at the cornerback and safety positions. More guys were released today. Let's start out in Arizona, where Adrian Wilson, the longtime Arizona Cardinals safety, was released after 12 years of service in Arizona. And he does have something left in the tank. And so I think that this was a mutual part of ways. The Cardinals felt like, hey, it's a new regime. And again, once new management comes in and a new coaching staff comes in, guys like Adrian Wilson, holdovers from the last regime, they're usually casualties. And his cap number wasn't that bad to where he needed to be released. But again, the Cardinals are penny pinching. They're trying to save every single dollar that they can. And so $3.5 million is worth a lot to the Cardinals right now. That's worth a lot to many teams. So they cut him loose. And I can honestly see him following his ex-defensive coordinator, Ray Horton, off to Cleveland and joining up there. The Cleveland Browns need a safety. And so it would be a perfect match in Cleveland for Adrian Wilson. But Adrian Wilson, add his name to the list of guys that you can sign in free agency at the safety position. Another safety that was released, DeJuan Landry of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He just signed a lucrative deal with the Jaguars just a season ago. Now he's on the market, and he will be a guy that you can sign in free agency at the safety position. Joining him from the Jacksonville Jaguars is Aaron Ross, another guy that just in the 2011 season, just a season ago, coming off of a Super Bowl championship win with the Giants, went out and tested the free agent market and signed a deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now he's on the streets. Now he's looking for employment. Now he's a guy that you can sign in free agency. Add him to the list of cornerbacks that are out there in the market that can be signed once free agency commences on Tuesday, March 12th at 3 p.m. It is staggering how many guys are being released. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are not playing around. Gus Bradley is not playing around. On that defensive side of the ball, he's getting his ducks in order. If he doesn't think you're a guy that can help him and you're making too much money, he's cutting ties with you altogether. And so that is amazing. He came in and two guys that you just signed a season ago, gone, just like that. Derek Cox probably won't be back in Jacksonville either. And so you look at this Jacksonville Jaguars secondary, it's going to look totally different. It's going to look revamped. Gus Bradley is coming in and he's molding this defense the way he wants to. He wants it to look a lot like the defense he had in Seattle. And you can see right now he's cutting bait as we speak. Another guy released, another name to add to the free agency pool coming up here next week. Chris Gamble was released from the Carolina Panthers. He's a 9-year vet, played every single snap of his career in Carolina. Now he's going to have to find a new home. He only played in 4 games last season due to injury, and so it'll be like a brand new start for Chris Gamble, who will be turning 30 here shortly. And so, man, I tell you what, add another name to the list. This guy is very talented, and he's only turning 30 years old, so there's a lot left in the tank. If Chris Gamble can come back healthy off of that injury and perform the way he has done for the Panthers for so many years, someone's going to get them a nice bargain in free agency in the form of Chris Gamble. A lot of guys being released, and that free agent market for cornerbacks is ballooning, and it's getting better and better, and it's making it tough on teams like the Redskins who have a decision to make on D'Angelo Hall as to whether to cut him loose and hit that market, because there's a lot of stuff there that you can pick up on the cheap. And D'Angelo Hall hasn't performed to the level of his contract. And so if you're the Redskins, you have to see guys like Aaron Ross, like Chris Gamble being released and saying, hey, we might have to cut him loose, save this money under the cap, get ourselves under the cap so we can go out and make some moves. So I wouldn't be surprised to see D'Angelo Hall either taking a nice substantial pay cut, and if he doesn't want to do that, having to pack his bags and being shown the door with a pink slip, because it's a lot of corners out there to be had in free agency this year. Another guy looking to get paid, and rightfully so. The Ravens are reportedly in talks on a big monster deal with their middle linebacker, Donnell Ellerbe. And this is a case of persistence and hard work paying off. This is an undrafted free agent out of Georgia. You know, a lot of people didn't believe in Donnell Ellerbe, but he persevered, he worked hard, and now it's going to pay off in the form of a big, huge payday via the Baltimore Ravens. He deserves it. He's their best linebacker right now, and I didn't think the Ravens could afford to let him walk away, and it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Now, again, nothing has been finalized. Nothing has been stated that this deal has been done. It's just supposed to be in the works. But either way, I don't see the Ravens allowing him to hit the market, and I see Donnell Ellerbe cashing in on a huge, lucrative free agent deal, and he deserves it. So that's been a whirlwind of news today in the National Football League, and I honestly, sincerely don't think it's done. I think there's going to be much more news, but that's all I have for you right now. That's a touchdown. Go ahead, throw it up. We're going to tackle this quick extra point. Today, I start releasing the free agency videos. It's called The Market. I want you to check it out. It's going to be a lot of videos. Again, I'm going to put it together in sub-packages, meaning each individual team will have their own video, and then I'm going to put it together as a whole package. All of those teams will be on one video as well. So I split the teams in the National Football League into groups, and they will be on videos according to their group. So just check it out. Again, you'll see your team, and if you don't want the whole package, again, you don't have to sign up for the whole package. You just want your team, which most of you just want what you want, which is your team, and I get that, and I understand it. That's exactly why I'm splitting up, making sure that you get what you're looking for and not another second of your time is wasted, because I know it's precious. And so I thank you for joining me today here on the show. Many ways to contact the show, many ways to view it. There's Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Check it out. Like me on Facebook. Every video I've ever done is on the Facebook page, so please check it out. There is Twitter. At In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Follow me on Twitter. inthelabroom@gmail.com is the inbox. If you want to drop a message in the inbox, please feel free to do so. And last but not least, YouTube, the page is Louis T. Check the page out. There's so much content coming out of this page. Please subscribe to the page if you haven't already done so. Because again, I'm covering the NFL wall to wall. Everything that goes on in the National Football League, you're going to hear it here. And again, please subscribe to the page if you haven't already done so. That's going to do it for me today. Stay tuned for all of the free agency talk that's going to be released here shortly. I want to see you back here, same time, same place, on Monday here in the lab room. We'll have so many things to talk about as free agency will be that much closer. We are officially 4 days and counting away from free agency. So don't you go too far. Stay tuned to this channel as I will be covering everything National Football League related. So have a good one. Enjoy your weekend. Want to see you back here on Monday. And one last thing before I go. The Bengals re-signed their punter, Kevin Hubert. They needed to do that. He's back in the fold. We undervalue punters in this league, but punters are very important, especially when you're a good defensive team like the Cincinnati Bengals. You need your punter to flip the field position. Kevin Hubert does that quite often. He's back with the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's going to do it for this episode. I will see you on Monday. Check out the free agency videos. They're coming at you fast and furious. Have a good one.